Hey everyone, welcome back to the NPTE podcast. This is Will Crane, your host. Thank you so much for joining me as we go through the content you need in order to dominate on test day. So today we've got a bit of a special episode, you could say. We're talking about what it takes to pass the NPTE, especially from the perspective of a first-time test taker. So a lot of times I talk about certainly lots of tips and tricks that are equally applicable among first-time or multiple attempt test takers. Today I did want to focus specifically on if it's your first experience, just to give you a little bit of preparation for mindset and what you'll experience and encounter on test day. But before I get to that, just a quick reminder, if you haven't yet, be sure to sign up over at ptfinalexam.com/podcast. Get all of our freebies, giveaways, be the first one to find out about any of our special deals. Black Friday's coming up before too long. You want to make sure not to miss out on any of those. Check that all out at ptfinalexam.com/podcast to get exclusive access to our freebie and free material as we go through and get you ready for the NPTE. So today we're talking about the first time NPTE experience. So I'll talk briefly about some of my experiences and give you some tips and tricks that should help you get through test day. Primarily, and really the overarching goal here is that the more familiar you are with the process and the environment, the less stress and anxiety you'll feel, simply because there will be things that are not unfamiliar to you. So just rewinding the clock back a little bit, when I was taking the NPTE, I felt very nerve-wracking. I'd had a study book. I'd spent some time going through practice questions. In fact, I spent most of my time, especially in the weeks leading up to test day, just dissecting, combing through practice questions, and really felt a little bit nervous about the exact experience. I had one previous prometric test experience. However, that being said, I didn't make that translation in my mind that was going to be precisely the experience I had again. So I guess part of it's just that anxiety of not knowing precisely what's going to happen. So again, to try to paint the picture for you, as you are preparing for test day, as I like to say, there are two first steps. The first step is you have to register at FSBPT and say, hey, I want to take the test. You have to pay their fee. It's about $500. You pay the fee for the NPTE. In addition to that, as a secondary first step, I still like to call it another first step, but technically they are separate steps and you could do one before the other. But contemporaneously, you sign up for an FSBPT account and pay their fee. In addition to that, you sign up at the state level for your state licensure application. And what that does, you choose your state. So I did it in the state of Idaho. I sent in the application to Idaho to say, hey, I would like to practice as a PT. Here are my credentials and my educational background and my transcript. I had to fill out, all the information about myself, demographic data. They needed to know everything about me so that they could issue me a license when it was all said and done. Ultimately, it is the state that makes the decision whether or not you are eligible to sit for the test. So the state is the arbiter, so to speak, and says, okay, yes, we approve you for taking the exam. They communicate that directly to FSBPT, and FSBPT, the Federation of State Boards, they say, okay, yes, we see, okay, Will has an account over here. This is his name. Okay, that matches all up. Great. At that point, the FSBPT sends you a letter to say, you are now authorized to schedule your test appointment, or the authorization to test form, or ATT letter. So the ATT letter comes to you in email format. When I took the test, they sent it to me both in letter format and email format. And what that does, it then permits you to go to Prometric site and to sign up for a test appointment. So at that point, you'll go to the Prometric site and say, I would like to use this Prometric site, whatever city you're in, state, city, zip code. You try to find something that usually is local to you or someplace that is convenient, or you get to choose where you want to take it. I've had people take it out of state. It doesn't matter where you sit. Really just matters that you take it in a Prometric test center that has availability that day. So you go in, you schedule your test appointment. You get to choose day and time generally. There are fixed test dates, so you can't choose any day, but you do get to choose, especially if you sign up early enough, you'll get to choose the day. Usually there's a 2-day window. It used to be just 1 day, and then during COVID, it was like a 2-week window, and now we're back to a 2-day window. In any case, you choose the 2 days, you choose the time that fits you best, and you just match up what schedule they have. At that point, you are now signed up and ready to take the test. So when it comes to test day itself, it's important to, number one, understand the style of the questions and the format of the questions that you'll encounter on the test. And this is where chances are you've already had lots of experience with this, but just to note, The scenario-based questions, the video-based questions, the image-based questions, and regular old text-based questions, these are the types or the formats of the questions that you'll encounter on test day. So the style of question is important, and really as you are preparing for the test, you'll find yourself doing this more and more, spending time understanding not only the content of the question, but also the style of the question. Now, it is very important to note that it is insufficient to simply be able to recognize content. Rather, you have to reason and be able to not only deduce, but also infer based on content. So to deduct or to deduce from content means that you take this large aggregate of data and make a decision based on that. It could also be the other way around, where they give you some characteristics and then you have to infer what would happen next or what would be the result of these conditions. And so that being said, you have multiple styles of questions. Don't get too focused in on the precise mechanism of the question, other than you need to know what style of question to expect. At PT final exam, we've got 6 practice exams. We're always writing more. In fact, it seems like that's all I do all day is edit test questions and get and prepare test questions for you, not only for this podcast, but for our giant exam simulator. Great way to go through a ton of questions, quiz builder in there. Really a very robust experience for your test taking skills and test taking experience. In addition to that, you have to have an understanding of the scope of content. And this is where, as always, if you're watching the YouTube version of this, I always like to include the content outline showing you the scope of content you are required to know. Now, the big 3 systems, cardio, musculo, neuro, make up about 75% of the test. That will continue to be the case in 2024 and beyond. That being said, don't forget about the other systems, and we try to go over those in the practice questions we do on this podcast. But in addition to that, we also do that in all of our premium and VIP classes, where we try to go through each of the systems in a way that is meaningful, a way that you can remember, and is very organized. And that's maybe one of the things that sets PT final exam apart from some other companies out there, is that it's organized and easy to remember. And that's something that I feel like I really stand by. That really sets us apart from a lot of the other characters. They're all great characters out there, but really sets us apart from some of the other folks who do test prep. So number 1, you got to know the style of questions. Number 2, you got to know the scope of content. And other things you've got to know would be the test mechanics, meaning how do you get to the test center? You have to have 2 forms of ID. All of these things are explained to you on the authorization to test form and on your Prometric information. But it's important just to recognize that there is a quite, we'll call it very strict check-in procedure, meaning that you are strictly proctored throughout this test. You have to check in and check out. They take your picture, your palm print, handprint, thumbprint. They use lots of biometric data to make sure that it is actually you sitting down for your test and you're not like tagging someone in between times. They take your picture a lot. So that being said, just understand you are under great scrutiny on test day, which can be a bit unnerving. As best you can, you try to just tune out the proctors, just focus in on your test. Try not to do anything that would that would grab their attention in a negative way. So like I tell the story when I was taking my OCS exam, which is also in a proctored Prometric test center, I managed to drop my dry erase marker. They give you a dry erase marker for your scratch pad. I dropped it, bounced off my foot, rolled across the room, and I had to raise my hand. And you can't go rummaging around other people's desks. So I had to raise my hand, get a proctor to help me. I got my marker back and I was able to proceed. And that being said, a little bit stressful. You're like, oh, brother, don't want to draw too much undue attention to myself here. You've also got to, just of note, you need to plan your breaks, plan what snacks and material you'll need during your breaks. Now, you're not permitted, and it won't do you any good anyway, but you're not permitted to access test material on your break. Rather, just consider what you'll take for your snack. I recommend something with fats and proteins, like a trail mix is usually a pretty good target there. Something that has fats and proteins and is not just pure sugar or pure caffeine. Now, what's cool for 2023 and beyond is that Prometric now permits clear plastic water bottles. So very simple, like a Costco brand or any type of disposable clear plastic water bottle. You can also use reusable clear plastic water bottles, but they have to be devoid of any writing on them. They want to make sure that there's not any type of test material or cheating material you could bring in. It can only have water. You can't have any other beverage other than water in a clear plastic container. They do permit that in the test room, and that's a great benefit. But prior to the summer of 2023, they required that you would take a break and go outside of the test room for any snack or drink. So just to repeat again, on test day, you are permitted to take a clear plastic water bottle with only water in it into your seat at the computer station on test day. Now, just a word to the wise, be cautious of overhydrating. Hydration is great for mental acuity and focus, but it can be deleterious to the experience if you just have to if you have to hit the bathroom like 5 times. So you want to make sure to plan that out in a way that is reasonable and necessary, and make sure you take not only care of yourself, but taking care that you are not underhydrated or overhydrated, but just right, that Goldilocks effect. Just of note about the test mechanics, once you finish the test, it's completely electronic. It's multiple choice, so ostensibly it could be graded immediately. That being said, though, they don't release the results until 5 business days after. So essentially 1 week after your test experience, you'll get your test results. And that can be frustrating, but it's because the number of examples I've got here of like major winter storms, power outages, COVID, just to name a few of things that disrupted the test experience for a large swath of people. And so therefore, to accommodate that, they give themselves a little bit of a window before they release scores, just to make sure they get everyone or as many people as they can in to take the test, so that, again, to prevent cheating and prevent disclosing and sharing of results. In any case, you try to get everyone in and out, usually within about a week's time. Now, granted, there are exceptions to that. There's exceptions to everything. But the point is, you won't get your results, your pass-fail result, until 5 business days after. And you won't get your score result until 10 business days after, so about 2 weeks after. Now, that does vary somewhat depending on your state. Some states permit the releasing of a score immediately. Some wait the full 10 days. So again, by immediately, I mean at the 5 business days, that's when you get pass-fail. All that to say that it's important to understand the test mechanics, the test day experience as a first-time test taker. So just again, as far as advice goes, make sure you're spending a lot of time just really digesting that content outline, working through tons and tons and tons of practice questions so that you are familiar with the style and scope of material. But then also make sure you're not just recognizing content. You need to be a master of the content so that when you encounter, say, I can guarantee autonomic dysreflexia is going to show up on the test. But you need to understand not only what the first step is, what the second step is, you need to understand the anatomical cause, the spinal levels at which it occurs. You have to have a very clear understanding of the diagnosis so that you can problem solve it forward and backward on test day. Because again, they're going to ask you a question on it. You need to make sure to know it thoroughly enough that you'll be able to answer it properly. So there you go. There's some first-time NPTE test-taking tips. I know that it's a stressful time, but let me tell you, it's I don't want to say a good experience. It's a stressful experience, but I'm trying to take as much stress away from you as possible. The result, this is one of those things where you may not love the process, but you will love the result once you get through the test, pass the test, and get your license. It's going to be really, it's a remarkable feeling to get to the other side of the test and get a paycheck rather than paying for your PT experience. Now you get a paycheck for your PT experience. It really is a fabulous feeling, and it's something definitely worth targeting and getting through the other side. Again, not only so it can benefit you, but it will also benefit your patients and generations of your family and your patients' families to come. It really is just a very noble thing you're doing. So, all right, with that, we'll bring it to a conclusion here. As always, feel free to reach out over at ptfinalexam.com/contact if you have any requests, anything you want to talk about on the podcast. Again, one of those things where we talk about tons of this in our courses all the time, but I do want to make sure that we're delivering to you the top quality content, the things that you need and are relevant to you for test day. So with that, we'll bring it to a conclusion. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate y'all. We'll see you in the next episode. Thanks.